In today's session, this is what I will be talking about. Three ways that actually your body is trying to protect you rather than betraying you in any kind of chronic disease, including autoimmune conditions. Um, Give me a second. Okay. So the health challenges that we are facing today are quite unprecedented. In fact, chronic diseases are the modern plague of the 21st century, and that's something that sort of I want to sort of touch upon today. I want to highlight that fact today, and the thing is that I find that we are often so much focused on diet and exercise that we forget that there are certain other elements that go into what we are facing today. Has been a huge rise in the number of autoimmune diseases, rise in the number of cases, and it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's not it's not contained in the US or Europe or any particular country. Of course, due to many different reasons, it was it grew in the a lot of the Western and the developed countries initially, but now it's sort of just spreading all over the world. And as you would know, it's not an infectious disease, so obviously it's not a particular virus or a bacteria which is at play here. And that's the problem with when we talk about chronic conditions, because it is to do with complex it's a complex multifactorial disease, and that's what makes it so difficult to deal with it, right? So in my coaching practice, where I work one-on-one with women with autoimmune conditions, and we go beyond symptom management, we find and address the root causes of disease. And what I'm touching upon today is something that you may not have really heard about, right? Because as I said, most of what you will read about in terms of chronic conditions, in terms of autoimmune conditions, will be related to, of course, diet and lifestyle, which are exercise, etc. And even if you're trying to prevent any kind of future health issues, most of what we hear about are actually about diet and exercise. And make no mistake, they have a huge role to play. In fact, one of the first things that I educate my clients about is that food is medicine, right? You need to focus on the foods that you're eating and not eating to get healthy. So there is no doubt about that. But I think what we are often missing out is a much bigger picture that is at play here, which is why even after focusing on food, exercise, etc., we may not be able to see much of a difference. And that's contributing to a huge rise in chronic diseases worldwide. So the thing is that the environment that we live in has a huge role to play in this, and actually has a much bigger role than you might, be aware of. And that's exactly what I'm trying to point out. And also, our relationship with the world around us really matters. It's not only the environment that we are exposed to, whether it's in terms of the toxins, the pollution, etc., the stress, right? But also the relationship that we have with the world. So if our body is constantly feeling threatened, if it feels that there is a tiger chasing us, every single day, then it's going to react that same way. And that's where, when it's trying to sort of protect you, it can backfire in the long run, right? What works in the short run as a protective mechanism, and I'm going to give you some examples, does not simply work in the long run. So what happens is that many of us, since they're not aware of what what the role of the environment that it has to play, and the huge role that the critical role that it plays in our determining our health outcomes, we are often at the mercy of the world that we live in, right? We are not able to take any action, we are not able to make any changes. But once you have this awareness, then you can actually put in place, you can make some changes in your life, you can design your environment to the best of your ability to support your body's healing process. And our most while for most of us, the good thing is that, not for most of us, but most of you watching this live stream, the good thing is that you might be able to afford healthcare, you might be able to afford nutritious foods, etc. Going to the gym. and maybe meditation, already having incorporating meditation, mindfulness. So you might be able to afford all that. You might be able to afford these resources. There are many who can't. So, so they, of course, bear the brunt of all these issues, health issues. But even if you are able to afford these, even if you are able to do these, what's actually sort of causing issues for all of us, I know, is that most, even in spite of all this, even in spite of the money, time, and effort that we are putting into improving our health, what we find is that many of our basic needs are still not being met. And what do I mean by basic needs? I mean that we live sedentary lifestyle, so a need for movement is not being made. We are unrested. We're not taking the time out from a busy, hectic, often overscheduled lives to take adequate rest. So that's also not being met. We are maybe struggling to deal with the toxic air, the toxic water around us, right? Of course, we putting measures in place. If But even then, that might be not enough. So all of these things are the basic needs that our body, that we have in order to create health. And even in the best of the scenarios, for many of us, these basic needs are simply not being met today, and that's creating a huge disconnect with what the outcomes that we want to have, whether we want to have children without any issues, which is fertility, whether we want to feel we thrive, we want to feel more energetic, we want to feel more vibrant, whether we want to look good, right? So all those things, not physically only, but of course emotionally, spiritually. So, but with all of, there's a huge disconnect with the environment that we are asking our bodies to live in. And in fact, that's the first point that I want to talk about today. So, primarily, I am touching upon three main reasons that I feel that our bodies are trying to protect us. So your body is trying to do its best to protect you, but and not betray you, even if you are dealing with any kind of chronic disease or autoimmune condition, right? And the first one is that your body is simply reacting to the environment that you're asking it to live in. So, and I'm going to elaborate on that. But just before I get into that, just a few more things that I want to touch upon. I honestly feel bad because what I'm telling you right now, what I'm sharing with you right now, doesn't paint a very good picture of what the future holds for our children. And I have two kids. My elder one is a girl, she's 15. My younger one is a boy, he's 11. And, you know, it's taken me a while to accept that the world that we live in is not really conducive for being healthy, right? All by itself. So that means that if I'm not doing anything, um, the environment that I live in, the environment that I'm asking my body to live in, will by and large be quite unhealthy, and it's going to have adverse health outcomes, right? So it's not, if I'm not intentional, if I don't design my environment to basically protect me, if I'm not designing my environment to support my basic needs, to help me put in place certain habits and rituals, then by and large, I'm going to have health issues, right? That's true for all of us. And I've struggled to accept this for a long time, but honestly, living in denial is not something that is very constructive, because then you don't have the power to do, make any changes or do anything and see different results. It's only when you actually accept what the reality is that you can start changing it. So this live stream, these sessions that I do every Friday here is a part of, I mean, something that I want to do to increase awareness about these topics and hopefully make some changes in my corner of the world, right? So it's a small step. So, and that's the reason I do these. Anyway, getting back to the topic in hand. So there are more and more of us today than ever before who are willing to spend the money, the time, the energy, the effort to improve our health outcomes, right? So I don't think there is a dearth of what we think as willpower, right? But as we are finding out that it is simply not enough. Even willpower is not enough. And in fact, there is actually a myth around willpower. And while I'm not going to address all of that today, just for you to understand that willpower is not infinite. There is a certain it's there is a certain finite amount of it, so we can't use it the way that we would like to make sure that we stay healthy, right? So we have to do things beyond that to ensure that we improve our health outcomes. And the unfortunate reality is that our environment is basically not, the kind of chronic diseases that we are grappling with. It's because of our bodies capable, the environment is beyond our body's capabilities of adapting to it and dealing with it. So the thing is that we are the first generation of human beings who are living in this kind of environment, in this set of conditions, whether it's the sheer number of toxic chemicals that we are exposed to on a daily basis, whether it's the kind of stress that we live with, and I'm talking about physiological, emotional stressors. There are different kinds of stressors. The kind of hectic life that we live with, where we don't take our time to rest and rejuvenate. Kind of foods that we consume, right? So many of these foods are what Michael Pollan calls as food-like edible substances. They're not even foods, right? And that's a huge pet peeve of mine, that so many of us are consuming foods which are not even foods. They look like foods, they smell like foods, etc. They don't act like foods in our body, right? Is it any wonder that our bodies are struggling to deal with it? Our immune system thinks that it's a problem, right? So these are the things that, which has not really equipped the first 2.5 million years of evolution. It has not equipped our bodies to deal with that. Our bodies have been equipped over millions of years of evolution to deal with a very different set of conditions, right? Till about 10,000 years ago, when the agricultural revolution happened. And since then, there has been a huge change in our environment, in the way we are living, the way we eat, the kind of thing that we're exposed to. So there's a huge change, and our bodies really not had time to adapt to it. And therein lies this mismatch, and that's the evolutionary mismatch that I was talking about. So again, coming back to that point, is that then is it any wonder that we are struggling with so many health issues, chronic health issues? Is it any wonder that our bodies are reacting the way that they are, by producing antibodies, by mistaking human tissues for foreign tissues, and then attacking them, which is what happens in the case of autoimmune conditions, right? So in that sense, your body is trying to protect you, right? And the first reason that I want to share about that is that your body is simply reacting to the environment. I already talked about this a bit, that in the environment that you're asking it to live in, your body is doing its best to survive, right, to protect you. So again, it's a matter of survival in the environment that it is living in. So I'll give you an example, that if we are asking it to live in a highly stressed environment, for example, if we are not taking our time to deal with high stress levels at work, either by either by taking out the time on a daily basis, on a regular, consistent basis, to recharge ourselves, to rest adequately, to have a certain number of 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, which many of us don't. If we are not doing this on a consistent daily basis, then the message that we give our bodies is that it's not safe to rest, it's not safe to let down our guards. And what that means is that the body will prioritize the fight or flight response over the rest and digest response, which are the two main responses of the nervous system. And what happens in the fight or flight response is that you are trying to obviously either become prepared to fight your enemy, whether it's visible or invisible, or run away from it. That means that you will shut down or deprioritize digestion, deprioritize reproduction, repair, so a lot of the other things which make up which consist of what we, when we feel vibrant and healthy, that sort of deprioritize at the expense of survival, right? So that's how our body is trying to protect us. So again, it's trying to protect you, not betray you in this particular case. The second thing is that that your body is sending you messages every single day so that you take some action. It is begging you, it is pleading you to take some action. And it starts with very, very small and minor messages in the form of symptoms, right? And I say this again and again in various in my blogs, etc., that in functional medicine we say that a headache is a blessing. What does that mean? That a headache is a way of your body telling you that there is something which is off, there is some sort of imbalance, something that needs to be attended to, right? And it can be as simple as having enough water in a day. So if you have been up and about, you've been in the sun too much, you've not really hydrated yourself, it's an indication that you need to do something, and your headache will go away. But the problem that happens is that um, if typically we don't really pay much attention to these symptoms, and then we just medicate, take a pill, and make the symptom go away. But what happens is that we don't really pay attention to the underlying message, and as this keeps building on, and as we are dehydrated day after day, and one thing leads to another, then the symptoms start increasing, as a body starts screaming louder and louder for us to take action. And believe me, that symptoms are, we know for a fact that symptoms are sort of the last thing to come up. Your body has been trying to deal with it for a long time. It's only when that it can't and it goes beyond that, it sort of gives us these kind of symptoms. I've talked about it in my earlier posts, in my earlier sessions. So again, a message for you, a wake-up call for you to start taking action. Today it's a headache. Tomorrow it can be a digestive symptom. Somewhere down the line, if it progresses, it can be an autoimmune diagnosis. It can be a chronic disease diagnosis. That's how chronic disease progression takes place. The third thing is, so the first thing I mentioned was your body is simply reacting to the environment that you're asking it to live in. That's how it's trying to protect you. The second is that your body is sending you messages in the form of symptoms every single day for you to take action. And it's when somebody's already diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, it's been going on for so long that the symptoms basically become huge, right, and debilitating, right? And so if you are not there yet, you have a huge opportunity to scale back your disease progression and hopefully prevent one, right? So it's literally in your hands. And the last thing that I wanted to share with you is the way that your body protects you, is that your body's immune response in the form of producing antibodies is its way of trying to again adapt to the current environment. I'll give you an example. So if somebody is having a lot of processed foods, refined processed foods, which is nutrient depleted, and it is filled with additives, preservatives, food colorings, etc., and this happens again and again and again, it creates a whole host of digestive issues, gut health issues. I'm not getting into that today, but the point I'm going to focus on is that there are certain maybe chemicals in that, certain again food-like substances that the immune system gets confused and is not very sure whether it's actually food or something else. So it's not sure whether it should treat it as an enemy or a friend, like a friend or a foe. And again, in an attempt to protect you, your body, basically your immune system, which primarily resides in your gut, which is where the first point of connection between the environment and your inside, your body, immune system. What it does is that in a bid to protect you, it basically says that, I can't make out whether it's actually food or not. So what I'll do is I will just be a bit cautious and produce antibody towards it, right? So that's typically what happens. And then as this keeps happening, this is just one mechanism that I'm talking about, right? There are many different ways that disease progression happens, especially autoimmune. But this is just one example I'm sharing with you. So, and as this happens, there are, and your immune system becomes hyper vigilant, overreactive to many, start becoming hypervigilant, overreacting to many different things. And as a result, that some of the human tissues, there is a case of mistaken identity. We call it molecular mimicry, where it starts looking, something in the food starts looking suspiciously like one of the human tissues. and your body starts producing antibodies towards the human tissues as well, right? This is sort of the disease progression, especially in autoimmune diseases. And as a result of that, when enough tissue damage has happened, then that leads to more organ damage, and that's when you get a diagnosis. But it starts much earlier than that, right? So these are just ways that you need to understand that your body is trying to protect you. And I am just trying to make you aware of this fact so that you can start doing something, take preventive action much before. And if you're already diagnosed, you can take steps to make sure that at least in the future, and you can reverse, and at least in the future you can prevent further damage, right? Whether it's in the form of medication, whether it's in the form of addressing the root causes. And usually a combination works best in the medium to short term, while you're trying to figure out what dietary, what lifestyle, what environmental changes that you need to make in your immediate internal and external environment, right? So the three ways that I have mentioned that your body is trying to protect you, in the case of an autoimmune or any other chronic disease condition for that matter, is that your body is simply reacting to the environment that you're asking it to live in. The second one is that your body is sending you messages every single day and is asking you to take action in the form of symptoms. And the third is that your immune system, your body's immune response is a way of trying to adapt to the current situation, set of conditions that, again, your body is living in right now. Right? So I hope that this session has given you some sort of shed some light on the evolutionary mismatch which is at play behind many of our health issues, behind the why our body is reacting the way it is to the to the environment, and why we are grappling with so many health issues in spite of the money, effort, and energy that we might be putting in to improve our health, right? So while we are doing that, we are still not seeing the results, and this might be the sort of the missing link. If you like what I have to say, share this video with somebody that you know that would benefit from listening to this, somebody who might be already dealing with a health diagnosis. And join my free Facebook group. It's called Healing Autoimmune with Anindita. You can be part of the group. I go live every week and I share resources, etc., which can help you to take your healing journey forward.